and welcome to Awakened Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Milen Riobe. And today our topic is tired. So everybody seems to be tired today, right? And everybody's complaining to their doctors, their friends, they're tired. They gotta pound back more energy drinks. Rachel and I were just talking about how she tried a little decaf coffee instead of regular coffee, and it just didn't quite, help her make it through the day. So that happens to a lot of us, right? And so fatigue is the most common symptom that people have. So the most common thing that everyone tells their physician when they go in for their checkups and visits is just how tired they actually are. And every year they have tests done, they get their physical exam, and most of them don't get answers as to why they're so tired. And so they come in the following year still tired, and a bunch more tests and no answers. And that's usually when they end up in my office. They go around and around. They're told various things about, it's just age, it's just stress, get more sleep. And all of that, some of it, part of it might be true, but the truth is we're not supposed to be tired, right? It's not a normal thing. And what I tell my clients all the time is common things don't make them normal. Just because something is very common doesn't mean it's actually normal. And so we're not supposed to be tired. Now, if it's midnight and you got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, yeah, you're supposed to be tired. But, if you're having a regular day, you're supposed to make it through your day without needing to lay down, without needing to chug back a bunch of energy drinks and coffee to make it through. What I teach my clients and what we're rolling out with our online course is, what does fatigue actually mean, and why do you feel it? Why is your body expressing this particular symptom or condition? It turns out that the human body talks to itself. It's always interacting with its environment, and it's always sending signals back and forth. Why? Because we are part of our environment. The human body, I always say this, it's a miraculous, intelligent machine. It's not just a hunk of flesh that doesn't know what it's doing. It doesn't need us to constantly fix it. It fixes itself. And part of the way that it does that is through communication with itself and with the environment around it. And so when your body says it's tired, it's actually sending you a signal. It's talking to itself. It's trying to resolve the fatigue. It's trying to get more energy, right? So when we're tired, what the body is telling us is that it lacks energy. And so in order for us to fix fatigue, we have to understand a few things. Number one, what energy is it talking about? What kind of energy is it asking for? And how does it use that energy in order to make us not tired, right? So one of the really important things for us to know is that our body makes its own energy. And so again, it's an intelligent, well-oiled machine. It's very much miraculous. So it somehow manages to convert the food you eat and the oxygen that you take in into basically electrical currency. We call that ATP, or adenosine triphosphate in scientific terms, but it's basically electrical energy or electromagnetic energy, if you will. And so somehow it manages to turn your protein, your carbs, your fats, and your oxygen into this electrical energy. And I use the term electrical loosely. It's more than that. It's much more sophisticated than that. But you can see it as an electrical circuit, right? And the electricity has to flow to every single cell in your body for the circuit to be complete, right? So when there's an interruption in that circuit, when that circuit is not complete for one reason or another, you get fatigue. You get tired because the energy can't flow, right? And so your body wants to fix that, and it will fix it on its own if it can. But if it's missing things, if you're not eating enough, if you're not breathing right, if you're not getting enough sleep, if there are too many toxins in your system and your body cannot fix itself, it will send you a signal. And that signal very often is fatigue. It's, I'm tired. I can't make it through the day. And so if we really want to be healthy and optimally functional in our lives and actually live our best life, we have to learn to understand what the body is telling us and what it means for us. And so to give you guys just a little flavor of what we're going to be doing in our online course, we have a symptom questionnaire, right? So it's not just a matter of knowing you're tired. You kind of need to know about the fatigue. When do you feel tired? Do you feel tired when you wake up in the morning? Or do you feel tired in the mid-afternoon? Or do you feel tired later in the evening? Do you feel tired after you work out? Do you feel tired after you have finished your workday? Or do you feel tired when you sit down to do your work? Do you feel tired when you sit still? All of those questions are critical because your body is telling you something through when it's tired. And so if you're tired later in the afternoon, it means that you don't have enough energy. The circuit can't keep going around and around all day. It runs out of gas, right, in the early afternoon. And so then we have to ask ourselves a few other questions, like, how many meals did I have today? How much sleep did I get last night? How much sleep have I gotten over the last week or so? Did I get good sleep? Am I eating the right food, right? So there's a list of questions that if you go through them systematically, you will find out why you're tired, simply by listening to the language of your body. And so your body has a very sophisticated language that it speaks, and it expresses itself in different ways, but the language is the same. Just like English, right? I'm telling you a bunch of different words, but you can understand what I'm saying because it's the same language and we both understand English, right? So once we understand the language of the body, we can then begin to help it to fix itself, right? And so if you're tired in the early afternoon, it's telling you a couple of things. It's telling you either you didn't sleep enough. So you want to ask yourself, how many hours of sleep did I get last night? And if the answer is 5 or 6, then you know that you need to add a couple hours of sleep, right? If the answer is, I only had one meal today, or I skipped breakfast today because I didn't have time, then your body is telling you need to eat more. That's one of the biggest lessons I teach my clients is you have to eat more. Like, people are always wanting to eat less because they think food is the root of their problems. And it's not completely untrue. It depends on the type of food that you eat. And it depends on whether or not that food suits your unique needs. And so once you know, okay, I skipped breakfast, I only got 5 hours of sleep, then you will understand what you need to do to fix the fatigue, right? And so I always tell my clients, skipping breakfast is usually the worst thing you can do. And I say usually because some people do overeat and they do need to fast. And those people know who they are based on their symptoms. So they get tired when they sit still. They get tired when they sit at their desk and they're trying to do work. They're the ones that fall asleep at their desk. They're the ones that fall asleep in church. They're the ones that fall asleep when they need to be focused and sitting still. They'll fall asleep on the couch watching TV. Those people actually do need to eat a little bit less or eat differently. And again, once you know what questions to ask and how to answer those questions, you begin to unravel the mystery of why you're tired. So the people that are more tired sitting still, they may need to do intermittent fasting. That might actually help them. Why? You get tired when you sit still because there's inflammation in your system, because your circulation is not fluid. So the electrical circuit is not moving because there are things in its way. So either too many toxins or too much inflammation. A lot of times that's derived either from your food or from toxic, for example, cleaning products or lotions you may be using, some of the outside external products that you bring into your home, things you use to clean your house, air fresheners and candles even. A lot of those things contain toxins. And if you don't have a really good detox mechanism, you're going to absorb all of that into your body. And the way you know is you are tired when you sit still. So people that are toxic and have poor circulation are actually more tired in the morning when they wake up. But when they start moving around, they feel better. That's how you know, all right, I have bad circulation, or I have too much inflammation, or I have too many toxins in my body. And then there are other questions you ask yourself, that we have in our questionnaire that help you to know, okay, do I need to detox? And if so, what should I use? Do I need to clean out my home? Do I need to start looking at more eco-friendly, safer products to put on my skin, to consume, to bring into my home, right? And so you don't need a lot of fancy tests. You don't need to see a physician and have an examination per se to figure that piece out. Now, you do need to see a physician and have an examination as part of your routine screening. But what I've noticed as a physician and what I have noticed as an integrative physician is doctors cannot fix fatigue unless you perhaps have a thyroid condition or something very obvious that they can diagnose with blood work, or with x-rays and things like that. We are not taught in medical school how to fix fatigue unless it's a thyroid condition, unless there's an underlying medical condition that we can diagnose as the cause of the fatigue. And so most people don't have that as the cause of their fatigue. And so year after year, they go to the doctor and they complain of being tired. And year after year, they don't get answers. And then they just get more tired every year. And then what happens to some of them is they either end up at my doorstep or at an integrative, physician such as myself's doorstep, or they end up trying to figure it out on their own, right? And we have this explosion of do-it-yourselfism now because we have come to the realization that going to the doctor isn't going to help me with most of my symptoms. So I still need to go to the doctor to make sure I get diagnosed with a medical condition if I have one, but the rest is on me, right? And that's what we're beginning to understand. The problem with that is there's so much information out there. Like you could Google fatigue and I don't know how many hits you would get in the tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of hits that you would get if you Googled fatigue, right? And it's one of the most frequently Googled terms because people are trying to figure out, how do I stop this fatigue? How can I make myself, have more energy? What can I do? And the answers are in plain sight. Your body is literally telling you what it needs on a moment by moment basis all day. If you can listen to it, if you can stop, know what questions to ask yourself, know what the answers mean, and know how to then deploy that information, right? So having the knowledge is one thing, putting it in action is another. And so most people need guidance. They can't just figure it out on their own. Most people need to know, well, what's out there on the internet that actually suits me, right? Am I an intermittent faster? Am I someone who needs to detox? Am I someone who needs to do, high intensity interval training? Like, who am I? And if you don't know how to ask yourself the right questions to get the right answers, you can do a lot of damage with the trial and error of do-it-yourselfism. And so we've devised an online course that is guided. So it's about self-empowerment, right? I always tell my clients, you have to be self-empowered. You cannot give your power away to someone else and expect them to fix you. You have to take your own power and be guided by other people, right? So, guided by the information that you read on the internet, but you need the guidance to know what information out there is for me, what suits me, what doesn't suit me. Should I be, again, on an intermittent fast? Should I be eating raw food? Should I be eating cooked food? What should I be doing? And if you know how to ask the right questions and you understand what your body is telling you when you answer those questions, then you can unravel that entire story. And you will then know, okay, no, I'm not an intermittent faster, or yes, I am an intermittent faster, right? I've had several clients come in and they've tried intermittent fasting or they've tried detoxes, and it wasn't the right thing for them to do. They actually felt worse after. And when we assessed them, we were able to find out exactly why that was. They would tell me, and it was always the same story, I feel okay when I wake up, but I get really tired at about 1 o'clock. Or sometimes I make it through 1 o'clock and I get really tired at about 3. Or I can't work out because I'm too tired, right? And so we would automatically know just based on their answers that you are not an intermittent faster. Why? Because the idea of fasting means you're not eating. If you're not eating, that means you're not putting energy into your body. And if you're already missing energy, if you're already lacking energy, then you're going to make yourself worse. And how do you know you're lacking energy? It's, I wake up okay, but as the day goes by, I get more and more tired. That tells you have a lack of energy. And if you're fasting, that means you're giving your body even less energy. And so you're depleting your energy stores and you're going to actually make yourself worse. You could even actually make yourself sick. And so it's really important to know how to ask the right questions, how to understand the answers that your body is actually telling you, and then what to do about it. So one of my clients came in, she had been trying to do detoxes. She felt toxic, so she would do cleanses. She would feel better for a few days, and then she would crash. And so she would think that that meant she needed to do more cleanses. And so she kept doing these cleanses and feeling worse and worse and worse. And so she came for some help. And we were able to very quickly tell her, just based on her own answers to the questions that I asked her, we figured out very quickly that her problem was she actually needed to eat more, not detox. So when you eat the right foods and they match you, when you're eating the right balanced diet for your own needs, your body detoxes itself. It doesn't need cleanses, right? The human body didn't wait for millions of years for human beings to devise cleanses and colon cleanses and detox kits to keep it alive, right? We'd be extinct if that were the case. The human body has all that built into itself. It does not need a detox per se. And so sometimes the problem is I actually need to eat more and I need to eat the right things. And so this particular client was cold. So she was not eating enough. She was detoxing herself artificially, and then she was cold on top of it. And so what that told us is she needed to eat warmer foods. So in other words, raw foods, frozen foods, uncooked, things that are not cooked are cold by their nature. And so cooking them, putting them on the fire, heats them up, warms them up. Warmer foods are easier to digest. And so if you feel cold, and sometimes you feel subjectively cold, like you're always the one with the jacket on, you're always the one, keeping yourself warm or turning up the heat when no one else feels, particularly warm, right? That's how you know you're too cold. And you can also take your temperature to know you're too cold, right? So first thing in the morning is the best time to take your temperature. You put the thermometer in your mouth, you wait, and then when you take it out, you read your temperature. If it's below 98.6, and many of my clients, their temperatures are like 96 degrees, 97 degrees. They're too cold because they eat foods that are too raw. They have a lot of salads or they're on an alkaline diet. An alkaline diet is cooling. It's going to drop your body temperature. And so oftentimes I have to say, you still want the same really good vegetables and beans, etc., but you got to cook your veggies, because you have to warm your vegetables up so they warm you up and raise your body temperature. When your body temperature is too low, it doesn't function. Just like in nature, if you drop the temperature too low, things will freeze. They will stop moving, right? Animals go to sleep when it's too cold. They hibernate when it's too cold. Plants go dormant when it's too cold. Trees go dormant when it's too cold. And then when the springtime comes, you see the leaves sprouting, the animals are up, things start moving again. Even water will freeze if it gets too cold. The human body is the same way. If it's too cold in there, things don't move. So your electrical circuit doesn't move at the rate that it's supposed to. And so your circulation suffers and you get more inflammation when that happens. But the inflammation that you're getting is because things are too cold. And so as you warm them up, the inflammation goes away because things are moving faster and your body then can move its own water, get rid of the inflammation by itself, and you're not putting more stress on it by doing a cleanse, if that makes sense. So these are some of the things we're going to be teaching in our online course, our Wellness Warrior 9-week transformation program. So I'm excited. And we got some questions here. So question: when I enjoy my favorite chocolate ice cream, soon after I'm falling asleep. I would have thought I should be energized from the sugar, but not so. Why? Yeah, so that could be a few things. If the ice cream is dairy based and you have inflammation in your gut, it could be making that worse. So dairy is very inflammatory for a lot of people. One of the ways I teach my clients to figure it out is to look at their tongue, right? If you have a thick white coating on your tongue, and you may or may not feel cold as well, but if you have a thick white coating on your tongue and you don't feel great after you eat ice cream or other milk products, then that's telling you that it's inducing inflammation. It's causing inflammation in your gut. And so you'd want to eat, dairy-free ice cream. I know it doesn't quite taste the same, but you can try oat milk ice cream, almond milk ice cream. Sometimes if you feel cold, so if when you eat ice cream, you feel cold and your temperature in the morning is already a little bit on the lower side. So if your temperature is under 98.6, so let's say it's 97, and then you eat the ice cream and you feel worse, that's telling you that it's the coldness of the ice cream, right? And so it's not a matter of, let me just have a non-dairy alternative. It's really a matter of, let me go find something warm as a dessert. Maybe it's hot chocolate instead of chocolate ice cream. Maybe it's a room temperature chocolate pudding instead of the ice cream, right? So again, your body tells you everything you need to know. You just need to know what questions do I need to ask myself, and how do I know what the answer means? So if your body temperature is too low and you don't feel good after ice cream, it's because your body temperature is too low and you're eating something cold, bring your temperature down even more. And that's going to slow your circulation down. And of course, you're not going to feel well. You're going to feel tired because the electrical circuit's not moving the way it's supposed to. Now, if you're not cold, if your temperature is normal, but you still don't feel good with the ice cream, and if you look at your tongue and there's a white coating on it, that's telling you you can't eat dairy, milk. And oftentimes, if you can't eat dairy, you also can't eat wheat. They're kind of twins. They wreak the same havoc in people, dairy and wheat. So oftentimes they travel together. The only people really who can safely eat dairy like all the time are people who are dry. So if you look at your tongue and it's dry, it's not moist, and you're constantly thirsty, then you can probably safely have dairy, or you happen to live in a desert environment where there's no humidity. Those people can safely have dairy more often. The rest of us, like I live in Florida, it's like, it's like you're in a swimming pool all the time. So we have to be a little more careful not to eat things that will cause more inflammation for us, like dairy and wheat, So, but again, you know what questions to ask yourself. It's always the same. If you know what to ask yourself, how to interpret those results, then you can figure out what to do on your own, which is what our 9-week Wellness Warrior transformation program is about. So I'm really excited about it because it's going to empower people to answer these types of questions for themselves so that they have a better sense of how to eat, how to sleep, how to exercise, and how to make sure that their bodies are properly detoxing to keep their cells clean and functioning and to keep the electrical circuit going. Once you do those things, and it doesn't take a lot, you don't have to fix every little thing. You have to fix the major things. Once you fix the major things, the circuit starts moving and you don't feel tired anymore. So that's a great question. Question 2, I'm tired a lot. My doctor recently discovered I have a thyroid problem. Is my tiredness connected? Yes. She gave me a prescription. My girlfriend says my hair should be thicker now. Is she pulling my leg? Yeah, so thyroid conditions are actually fairly common. They are probably extremely underdiagnosed. In integrative medicine, we diagnose thyroid conditions differently than a regular allopathic, classically trained medical doctor would diagnose them. And so your thyroid is essentially your metabolic regulator. And when we're talking about energy, we are talking about metabolism. Metabolism is essentially how your body makes and uses energy. And so how it makes and uses energy dictates how it functions, how the electrical circuit goes around and around. That's your metabolism. And so when you have a thyroid condition, your metabolism, if it's an underactive thyroid, your metabolism drops. If it's an overactive thyroid, your metabolism goes up excessively. And so people with an underactive thyroid are tired all the time. They can lose hair, they may have constipation, dry skin, and that is because not enough electrical circuitry flowing, right? Your metabolism's too low, your body's not making and using energy properly, so it can't feed your skin, it can't feed your hair follicles, and so your skin gets dry, your hair gets thin, or even falls out. And so correcting a thyroid condition by taking thyroid hormone replacement will then give the body the hormone that regulates its metabolism. That's not always the fix. So an underactive thyroid is usually a sign of something else. And so it's not the true cause of the fatigue, if that makes sense. Usually a thyroid condition is caused by stress. And so what stress does, the hormone that we release under stress is cortisol. Cortisol itself suppresses the thyroid. In other words, it causes it to become underactive on purpose. The reason being, when we're under stress, we are in fight or flight mode. When you're in fight or flight mode, your adrenal system, which is your stress handling metabolism controller, is awake and alert, and it puts your thyroid to bed. You can't have both systems operate in fight or flight. So the adrenal system, which is supposed to handle your stress, wakes up, puts the thyroid to bed, and then it causes your thyroid to go to sleep, basically, until the stress is over, and then the adrenal system backs off and allows the thyroid to take over again. And so what happens today in 21st century, planet Earth is the adrenal system is always on because we have so much stress. And so the thyroid is always asleep. And so the problem with the adrenal system being all the time is it's not supposed to be on all the time. And so it wears itself out, and then you get tired. And then you go to the doctor, then they diagnose your thyroid condition. And then they fix your thyroid condition, but the problem being there are other things going on. So sometimes it helps to a point, but not completely. And so there are other things that need to be addressed. So yes, that's why some people will say, well, when I take thyroid hormone, my hair gets thicker or it gets longer. My skin's not dry anymore. I don't have constipation anymore. That's because your body can now make more energy to use to function. So that's why you won't have as many symptoms of fatigue when you take thyroid hormone replacement. So that's another great question. Next question. I'm getting older and my energy is quickly spent just after shopping at Walmart or another big box store. Any suggestions for us older gals to increase our energy? Yeah, so that again, so what you're demonstrating is you get tired when you do something, right? If you felt better after you shopped, that would say something else, but that's not what your body's telling you. Your body's telling you, I'm tired when I go shopping. So in other words, it's telling you, I don't have enough energy to handle what you just did. And so that's telling you a few things. So you have to ask yourself a couple questions, right? One is, are you getting enough sleep? So if you're running on 5 and 6 hours of sleep, that's why you get tired, when you go shopping. And so you need to start sleeping more. Now, if your problem is, I can't sleep, I can't fall asleep, I wake up a lot, I have to get up to go to the bathroom, then there are other questions to ask yourself to start to resolve those things and other interventions that you can do so you can sleep better. But you have to fix the sleep issue. Otherwise, there's not a lot you're going to be able to do. You can take afternoon naps, right? So there was a question coming up about an afternoon nap. That's not a bad thing. We're supposed to, get up, work, stop working, rest, go back to work, stop working, and go to sleep. And then eating, in between those times. And so the human body is designed to slow down in the afternoon. And so sometimes taking a quick, cat nap, not a bad thing. So my clients who come in who tell me a similar story, I get tired after I do something, or I'm too tired to work out, or by the afternoon, I can't stay awake. I have to drink a bunch of coffee or what have you. I will often recommend to them that they take an afternoon nap, just 30 minutes, or they lay flat with their feet up above the heart. So if you're laying flat on a yoga mat or a mattress, you would put your feet up on some pillows so that the blood from your extremities comes back to your heart. And what happens when you get the blood back to your heart is you get more oxygen in your blood, because now it goes through your lungs and it gets oxygenated, and then it goes back into your body. So that gives you a boost of energy. And so I do recommend that for my patients who are tired when they do things. So when you're tired when you do something, your body's telling you that you need more rest or more energy. So if you're not sleeping enough, you got to sleep more. You got to buy a little more time by taking some just quick cat naps or laying flat with your feet up and maybe doing some breathing techniques for 10 or 15 minutes in the afternoon. And then the other question you have to ask yourself is, what did I eat today? Did I skip breakfast? Did I have enough of a breakfast? Did I have lunch? Did I have a snack? And if the answer to those questions is no, then you're tired because you're not eating enough. And again, we have a whole symptom questionnaire to figure out what you should be eating, when you should be eating, how many calories you need. You don't have to count calories. It's not a matter of counting calories. I tell people to use the FIST method, that takes the counting calories out. You don't want it to be hard. You want to be able to incorporate things into your day that make your day easier, that give you the energy to go shopping or to do whatever it is you need to do. So if you're not eating enough, you got to eat more, and then you got to eat clean food. Another question that we ask is, are you eating enough protein? Again, protein's critical, because if you don't eat enough protein, your body falls apart. And when your body's falling apart, it doesn't matter how much energy you give it. If you're not giving it enough protein to build itself back up, you're going to stay tired despite eating more. And so these are all things we go over with our clients so that you know exactly what it is that you need and how to make the corrections that you need to make to get yourself energized to be able to get through your day. So that's a great question. I hope that answer helped you. And have a follow-up from our listener. I'm cold a lot of times. Thanks. I'm cold a lot of times switching to chocolate bars. So I would say if you're switching to chocolate bars, that's fine, but make sure it's dark chocolate. You don't want too much dairy and sugar in your chocolate. So very good. So yeah, these simple questions help a lot, right? So sometimes people, you know, you don't have to eat perfect. You just have to know what you need, right? So ice cream's just not your friend at the moment. So maybe it's chocolate pudding that's room temperature. Maybe it's a chocolate bar, like you said. Just make sure it's dark chocolate. You know, maybe it's hot cocoa, right? So it's not like we don't have to eat twigs and, you know, stuff that doesn't taste good. We can eat things that we enjoy. We just have to know, does it need to be hot? Does it need to be cold? Does it need to be cooked more? And these are simple questions that people just don't know to ask themselves because we don't talk about it, right? It's not at the doctor's office. It's not in our culture. But the way that I found this out is through Eastern medicine, right? And the pandemic of the past 2 years when we were all on lockdown and I couldn't see my patients, right? I had to do everything by phone. And what I realized is I had learned all this in the past. We get so, you know, ingrained in habits, right? The habit of you have to come to me and I have to examine you and I have to do these tests. And that all got taken away over the last 2 years. And we had to figure it out in a different way. And what I realized is you don't have to do all these tests. We can actually just guide you with questions and you end up answering these questions and figuring things out for yourself with guidance, of course, like what we're doing with this back and forth, right? And so you can figure so much out because your body is constantly talking to you. Every little symptom, every little sign that it sends to you is it talking to you and expecting you to interact with the environment and change something. So in this case, it's expecting you to see that, okay, the coldness of the food you just gave me is making me feel worse. So please give me warm food. Like that's literally what it was saying. And how do you know that's what it was saying is you need to know to ask yourself that question. Oh, I don't feel good after I just had this ice cream. What does that mean? Okay, so what is ice cream? Ice cream is cold. Am I already cold? If I'm already cold and I'm putting something even colder in my body, that's why I don't feel good. What else is ice cream? Ice cream is dairy, right? And so if my temperature is normal, but I still don't feel good after the ice cream, that's telling me dairy is not my friend and I need to find a dairy alternative, snack. So it's great that you realize that you're cold all the time. And so now you know to have a dark chocolate bar, right? Or hot cocoa. All right, so question, you said eating using the FIST method. What does that mean? Yeah, so the FIST method is just this really easy way that you don't have to count calories. So everything you put in your plate is the size of a fist, right? Essentially. So your protein portion is the size of your fist. So that way you don't have to measure it out, see how many calories it is. You just need to know what a protein is, right? And we teach you that in the course. Like a lot of people don't know what a protein is. Again, not because they're not intelligent, but because there's so much information out there and a lot of it is just not correct. So a lot of patients will come to me and they'll think a bagel is a protein source, right? Does it have a little bit of protein in it? Yeah, but is it a protein source? No. Why? Because it's way more carb than protein. So it's a carb source. A lot of people think beans are a protein source, but they're not. That doesn't mean there's no protein in beans. You just have to know there's way more carbs than protein in beans. And so you just have to know that, right? And so if you need a really clean protein source, then you got to look at things like tempeh, and soy products if you're vegan. You need to look at, if you're not a vegan, then you're looking at animal-based proteins, right? You're looking at eggs and chicken. You're looking perhaps at ham and pork. You're looking at fish. You're looking at beef, bison, elk, venison. All these things are pure protein sources. And so you just need to know, okay, I got to have this much protein based on your questionnaire, or I have to have this much carb, but you don't count them. It's fist size. So a fist, size of chicken, that would be about 20 grams of protein, right? You need about 25, 30 grams of protein per meal for most people. And again, we help you calculate that in the coaching program, but it's essentially the size of a fist. If you're going to have a carb, it's essentially the size of a fist. So if you're going to have brown rice, for example, with your food, it's essentially the size of your fist. If you're going to have sweet potato, it's the size of your fist. And so it's a really easy, simple way to not overeat, but you just need to know what's a carb, what's a protein, what's a vegetable, right? People think corn's a vegetable. It's not, it's a carb, and so, these are just misconceptions that people have that we correct. And once now you can deploy that knowledge, put it into action, and live your best life. And that's the whole purpose of the 9-week Wellness Warrior Transformation Program. So that's another great question. Is melatonin supplement good to help sleep when I'm overtired? For me, melatonin keeps me awake. Why is that? So melatonin drops cortisol. And so the effect that it's supposed to have, right, what it's touted to do by marketing is it tells you you're going to sleep better if you take melatonin. What they don't tell you is you're only going to sleep better if your cortisol levels are too high. So if the reason you're not sleeping is because your cortisol levels are too high, taking melatonin will drive them down, and then you'll be able to go to sleep. If your cortisol level's already low, then taking melatonin will not help you. And in fact, if your cortisol level's too low, taking melatonin may make you feel more wired. So it has the opposite effect. Sometimes when people are overtired, they get wired. And so if your cortisol level's too low, what that's telling you is that you've burnt out your adrenal system. You've been under too much stress for too long. The stress handler can no longer handle stress. And so you will feel the stress, as opposed to being able to control the stress, if that makes sense. So if your cortisol level is too low and you take melatonin, it's going to drive your cortisol level down even lower, and you won't be able to handle stress. And so you will feel wired, if that makes sense. And then it'll have the opposite effect of what it should have. And so again, these are just little things that once you know these, basic functions of the body, which we teach, you'll begin to understand, oh, well, that's why the melatonin is not working. So now what do I do, right? So one of the options could be to get a grounding pad, right? So they sell grounding pads. And I end up recommending this to many of my patients because I see mostly women, even though I do see men, it just so happens, more women gravitate off this. And, women tend to be a little bit more depleted than men. They tend to be a bit, the body temperature tends to be a little bit lower than men. And so what a grounding pad does is it helps conserve your energy. And so that helps people sleep better on the whole. So if you're that person that feels wired and you can't sleep, a grounding pad helps to settle your energy. What a grounding pad is just science, right? People think it's all woo-woo that I'm grounding myself, but it's not. You're just basically pumping electrons into the body. Electrons are what create electricity. That's why they're called electrons, right? And so they create electrical circuits. And again, if you remember that your body is simply a bag of water, current flowing around it, it makes sense that if you put more electrons in your body, your electrical circuit will function better. And so a grounding pad, you just basically plug into the wall and you put it on your bed. You can only have one sheet over the top of the pad or it doesn't work. So you don't want to put a bunch of sheets and a blanket on top of it. It won't work. So just one sheet over the grounding pad, and you just plug it in and you sleep on it. And it just pumps electrons into the body overnight. And so that might help you sleep better if melatonin is not working. The other thing is breathing. Again, we always come back to breathing at the end of every podcast, but breathing also brings more oxygen into the body, which allows your body to use electrons more efficiently. At the end of the day, when you eat your food and you breathe, you're just creating an electrical circuit, and the electricity has to flow. So that's why grounding has been demonstrated to be so useful, just walking on the earth with your bare feet. The problem is we wear shoes, right, to protect our feet. And so the rubber soles don't allow the earth's electrons to come into our feet. And so we break the circuit. And that's another cause of fatigue for many people, is they're not grounded. Those people feel anxious. They have an underlying angst all the time, and settling the energy simply by pumping more electrons into it so that the circuitry can function better, can resolve the anxiety and the fatigue. So that sounds like a tired and wired issue. So you need to restore the adrenal system, it sounds like, and rest more. Sleep more. So when you have a burnt out adrenal system, you need to sleep more than usual. You need to nap more than usual, and you need to be what we call restorative. So you need to breathe more, take in deeper breaths. I tell people you want to steal energy from any source you can get it. So the sun at dawn and dusk is a great source of energy. Grounding on the planet, bare feet, just watch the fire ants. And of course, watch the pesticides and everything else. But, walking on the beach, for example, with your bare feet can help ground you and complete the electrical circuits. So I hope that helps. Is a thyroid condition tied to gluten, celiac, and dairy allergies? It can be. So again, thyroid conditions most often, not always, most often are due to stress. What is stress? Stress can be foods that don't agree with you. Stress can be toxins in your environment. Stress can be psychological stress, financial stress. Anything that stresses you out can cause a thyroid condition. And so if your metabolism's too low because you have an underactive thyroid, taking dairy and gluten will make it worse, because dairy and gluten are cooling by their nature. So they naturally lower body temperature. So if your temperature is already too low, having dairy and gluten or wheat will actually drive your temperature down more, which will drive your metabolism down more, which will worsen your thyroid condition. Everything is very chicken and egg, right? Which came first, we don't quite know, right? You can't quite separate them. It's not one causing the other per se. They just happen to go together. And so breaking the cycle involves avoiding the dairy and the wheat, and perhaps taking your body temperature. If your body temperature is too low, again, you need to warm up your food. Things need to be cooked, maybe even a little spicy, right? Maybe even a little bit of cayenne pepper, some black peppers, curries, turmeric, things that will warm you up, ginger. Fennel is warming. Again, we teach all this in our program, but knowing what foods are warming if you're too cold help you to raise your own body temperature. And what that can do is help you require less and less thyroid medication, or not require it at all, potentially. Of course, the only way you would know that is to be tested, right? So you don't want to be guessing and managing medical conditions on your own by any means. So you want to make sure that you're seeing your physician and having your thyroid condition properly managed, getting your blood work done, taking your prescribed medication. Thank you so much. I'm your host, Dr. Milena Riobe. As always, it's a pleasure, and I wish you many blessings until next time. Thanks for listening.